The tavern is warm tonight, traveler, the fire crackling low and steady in the hearth. The smell of roasted meat lingers in the air, mingling with the spiced tang of mulled wine. Sit, and I shall tell you a tale not of kings or knights, nor of mages casting fire across the battlefield, but of a boy, poor and unnoticed, who rose to stand among nobles not with a sword in hand, but with the loyalty of hounds at his side. Once, in the farmlands of Aelmsford, where the soil was dark and rich and the rivers fat with trout, there lived a boy named Corin. He was thin, wiry, and forever smudged with mud, for he belonged to no wealthy household. His father tilled the soil for the lord of the land, and his mother spun wool that never fetched more than a few coppers at market. To most, Corin was invisible, a shadow on the edge of the fields, another poor boy chasing geese or cutting thistles by the roadside. But Corin carried within him a strange gift. It began with a stray hound. The dog was a brute of a creature, patchy-furred, ribs showing beneath his skin, with scars old and fresh across his muzzle. The other children feared him, throwing stones whenever he skulked near the village. But Corin, with no more than a half-stale heel of bread, crouched low and held out his hand. The hound, growling deep, crept forward. Most boys would have flinched. Corin did not. He whispered softly, words that made little sense, a rhythm more than speech. The dog's growl faded. Its tail, slow as the tide, began to wag. And so the boy won a companion. From then on, wherever Corin went, the hound followed. He named the beast Bramble, for the tangled mess of his coat. The two became inseparable, and soon whispers stirred. Old women in the village muttered that the boy had the devil's tongue for beasts. Farmers noticed how their strays, once wild, grew tame under Corin's hand. Cattle settled when he entered the pen. Even horses, skittish and stubborn, turned their ears to him. What began as whispers became notice. It was the Lord of Aelmsford himself who first summoned Corin. Lord Holwick was a stern man, iron-gray hair and a temper sharp as his sword. He had long prized his hunting hounds, lean beasts bred for the chase. Yet of late they had grown restless, snapping at each other, refusing the leash. Corin was brought before him, a ragged boy barefoot on the cold flagstones of the keep. "You are the one with the trick," Holwick said, eyes narrowing. "Show me." They led him to the kennels, where the hounds snarled and lunged, their eyes bright with rage. Corin felt no fear. He stepped forward, his voice low, steady. Bramble padded at his side, and the hounds stilled, ears pricking, growls fading to whines. One by one they lowered themselves to the straw, their anger quenched like flame in water. The kennel master gaped, and even the hard-eyed lord sat straighter in his chair. From that day, Corin's life changed. No longer did he wake to the plow or the loom. Instead, he rose with the sun to walk the kennels, to feed, train, and whisper to the hounds. His gift proved greater than any had guessed. He taught them to heal, to hunt, to follow the faintest scent across leagues of countryside. Soon he was not merely a boy with a stray. He was the Houndmaster of Aelmsford. But fate, traveler, is never content to leave a man in peace. War came to the kingdom. Across the borderlands rode raiders, burning farmsteads, slaughtering villages. The king called his bannermen, and Lord Holwick answered. Corin, scarcely 16, found himself pressed into service. Not as a soldier, no, for the Lord had other plans. Corin and his hounds would be the kingdom's eyes. It was Bramble who led the first great hunt. A raiding band had struck a hamlet and vanished into the hills. The soldiers had no trail to follow, but Corin knelt, pressing Bramble's nose to a shred of cloth torn from a cloak. The hound sniffed, growled low, and bounded forward. For 2 days they followed, across rivers, through forests, over stony ridges, until at last the raiders' campfire smoke smudged the horizon. The ambush that followed was swift and brutal, and the raiders were driven back in chains. Word spread of the boy who could track men like foxes. Soon every noble clamored for his service. The hounds of Aelmsford hunted not deer, but traitors, deserters, and spies. Coran grew hardened, his boyish face shadowed by the weight of war. Yet he never lost the quiet gentleness with his beasts, and they with him. Some whispered the gods had touched him, gifting him their tongues. Others muttered of darker bargains struck beneath the moon. Coran himself said nothing, for he knew only this. The hounds obeyed, and they never lied. There came a night, traveler, darker than any before. A traitor within the king's court fled with secrets that could turn the tide of war. He vanished into the marshlands where no soldier dared follow. The king's men despaired, but Corin stepped forward, Bramble at his side, and asked only for silence. In the still of night, with reeds whispering and will-o'-wisps dancing above the mire, the hounds took the scent. Step by step, deeper into the swamp, until the water lapped at their waists, and there, beneath a rotting willow, they found the traitor, his dagger drawn, eyes wild. The man lunged, steel flashed, Bramble leapt. The traitor fell, throat crushed, and the kingdom's secrets saved. But Bramble, faithful Bramble, did not rise again. Corin wept that night, his tears falling into the dark water. The boy who had begun with a stray was now a man, scarred by loss, honored by lords, feared by foes. He buried Bramble beneath the willow and carved no marker, for the bond they shared needed none. Years passed. Coran's name became legend. The nobles of the realm still spoke of the Houndmaster of Aelmsford, who could track the very wind itself. Yet in every telling there is always that shadow, the boy who began with nothing, who found friendship in a ragged stray, and who rose not by steel, but by the loyalty of hounds. So remember, traveler, when next you hear the howl of a dog in the distance, it may be no ordinary cry, but the echo of Coran's pack hunting still beneath the stars. And so ends the tale of Corin, the farm boy who became the Houndmaster. Drink deep, friend, and carry the lesson. Greatness does not always roar with trumpets or blaze with fire. Sometimes it comes on 4 paws, with a wag of the tail, and the loyalty of a friend who never leaves your side.